Hey guys, what is up? My name is Mike and this is my story from the soul. So I grew up actually as a military brat. So I was born in Louisiana, but I was only there for a few months because my dad was then PCS'd all the way to North Carolina. And then from North Carolina, we went to Panama. And from Panama, we went to Georgia. And so once he retired in Georgia, I grew up in Georgia from the age of 6 all the way to 18 until I went to college. And then eventually, after graduating from in Georgia, I made my way over to North Carolina. And while I was in Georgia, I got really into the Korean American community there. It really took me in more than I thought it would, because I had one of my best friends was Korean. And I did not think it would impact my life as much as it did, considering right now I'm actually in Korea, and I think it's all because of my high school and my friends in high school and my friends who kind of poured into me who were Korean American. When I was in college, I always had an interest in East Asian culture and languages and martial arts and everything. And so I studied abroad in Japan for about a year. And so throughout that year, I loved living in Asia. And after graduating, I knew eventually I would want to come back. And so while I was living in North Carolina, I was teaching at a public elementary school. And while teaching at the public elementary school, I felt that there was something missing. There was something that I wanted to do. And by this point in life, I was kind of already at this stage where I thought I was just going to live in the US and college life was college life and maybe Asia was in my past, until I actually ran into two teachers who worked at our school, but they were also international teachers. One teacher was from the Philippines and another teacher was from Ghana. And they saw the fire that I had in my eyes for this international life, what I had for just cultures and languages and everything. And they told me, look, I think you need to go and go teach internationally. And I was like, really? Like, how do I go about doing that? Like, I knew I could, go with the military and like do the whole DODS route, the Department of Defense route. And they were like, no, there's actually another way you can go. Especially that since you're a certified teacher in the US, you can actually go and teach at schools internationally. And at that point, I couldn't believe it. And as soon as they encouraged me to do that, I literally started looking up that night. I started finding where I could go. And I wanted to go back to Japan at first. But at that time, I was attending a Korean church. So since in high school I attended a Korean church, I was already familiar with the Korean American community. After getting out of college and working, I made my way back to a different church, but into the Korean American community. And it impacted me so much that I decided Japan was fun. I loved it, but I want to try living in Korea as a teacher. I want to experience that life in a deeper way. Since I lived in the Korean American community in a way, I wanted to see what it was like living in the Korean community. I don't think it was a stroke of luck. I think it was an act of God. I found the same grade level that I was teaching at that moment at an international school. I interviewed for the job and he told me, hey, think about it. And I was like, all right. I thought about it. Yes. I took the job that day. The same moment he offered it to me, I took it. And I never turned back. And I loved living here ever since. Even though I was a part of the Korean American community, and I say that lightly because I'm not Korean, but I kind of was in the community with them. The Korean American community is way different from Korea. Those are two different worlds. Even though they may mirror a little bit, they were completely different. And so when I got here, there were some things that kind of threw me off. Like there were some like obvious things like driving, right? Like driving is way different here. If you're not watching yourself, you will get bumped by a car in a bad way. Like you'll get knocked by a car. Speaking of getting knocked, I got knocked around by old ladies all the time and just like pushed in the subway. Like I could have just jumped up and just kind of just rode the wave from people pushing and everything. That really kind of threw me off because being a Southerner, right? You know, we bump into somebody like, oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. Like, you know, we apologize and stuff like that. But I mean, that doesn't happen here. And it's crazy. Even though I've been here 5 years, there are some things culturally that I still do that is weird to Koreans. Like Southern people in the US, we just talk to people. Like you'll be in Walmart and be in line and you'll just turn around and randomly start a conversation with people, right? But even in Korea, like I had that habit of just like talking to strangers and they just look at me like, why are you talking to me? I don't mean to do it. It's just culturally, that's who I am. And so I always found it kind of weird that Koreans don't do it, which, you know, I get it. I get it. That's how they are built culturally. But that's one thing that kind of just shocked me and threw me off. And not to mention the whole ladder structure here and just how everything happens in an order. Like there is a process, right? Even here with age, someone younger than me would have to like refer to me like in a respectful way. Like, I mean, like 2 years younger, which, you know, in the US, it's just like, you're just 2 years younger than me. Like, who cares, right? But in Korea, it's just like, no, they have to speak to you in a respectful way. I mean, I guess since I'm a foreigner, then like they kind of feel like, oh, well, he's a foreigner, so I don't have to play by the rules. But you know, some people do find it important to play by those rules still, and that's kind of weird to me, and that kind of shocked me. But again, I guess that's just the way they're built here, right? So Korea has an interesting way of seeing people of color. I know that Koreans, the way they view Southeast Asians, right? You know, they're darker, they're Southeast Asian and everything. They may see them one way. They may see them as kind of being lower in status, to be honest, but not all, obviously. Black people, we're seen a lot of time, not by all, but a good amount, is like kind of the stereotypes portrayed by Western media, right? So black man can either be, he's a rapper, he's an athlete. So there's a multitude of different stereotypes that some Koreans do see blacks. You do also have Koreans who are more familiar, though, with blacks, whether it's African Americans, whether it is like Africans. I feel that there are some out there who do have experience, but I think there's a larger majority who don't. The struggles that I have had as a black person, so more related to like my color, I would say the toughest ones I've had was more in relationships. So right now I am married and my wife is full Korean, or we were dating since 2016, January 2016. And we got married in May 2019. So in between that time, it's been a good relationship, but at the same time, it's been a struggle. And it's because her parents didn't really agree to our relationship. For a solid 3+ years, her parents never agreed. And I want to say that I was consistent in our relationship. Like I never ran away, I never left, I never like treated her bad or anything to kind of give her parents like a bad feeling about me. But they didn't approve. And I think there's two reasons why they didn't approve. One reason is because, one, I was foreign. And being foreign kind of comes with its own struggles with Koreans who are very traditional, because they want to do things that are traditionally Korean. For example, like parents, right? Like our parents, or we're supposed to get together, kind of talk, do their whole thing, kind of figure out like how we're going to work through the marriage and stuff like that. That whole biz, right? But also to like the cherry on top of that was that I was black. and I know, you know, some people may be like, oh, well, maybe it's not because you're black. Maybe it's because you're just foreign. But the thing is also is that it was at some point mentioned that it was worse because I was black. And at that time, I didn't really know how to take it. And the parents' reasoning behind this was because, one, Koreans are really concerned about what other people think about them. They're really concerned. And, you know, as an American, we're just like, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to do my thing, right? I'm going to be me. I'm going to do me, you do you. But for Koreans, it's really important that other people, when they look at you, they think positively. They like you. They only have good things to say about you. But her parents felt that us together will actually cause people to talk about the parents, to talk about us. When we have kids, our kids will have a hard time in school because they're mixed race. They're half black. But that was like one of the toughest struggles was I felt that myself, that I really cared for my wife, or then my girlfriend. And I did what I could for her. And still, that wasn't good enough. And what wasn't good enough was something that I couldn't help. I'm very proud of my family. I'm very proud of my culture, my heritage. And that's just who I am. And so for some people to treat me worse just because of the way I was born, it could not register to me. It didn't make any sense. I honestly felt that I was, well, obviously discriminated against, right? Because of my color. And because I was a foreigner. But I knew that I had something to offer. I knew I had something that would be worth to the family, of worth to the family. And I knew that I would be a good, not just a good boyfriend to her at that time. I knew I would eventually be a good husband. And now I eventually be a good father in the future, as well as a good son to her family. Oh my God. So the way it turned out, it actually turned out really well. Like it's really crazy, right? Because like before we got married, mom was like, bring home like any man, as long as he's Christian, it's okay. As long as he's Christian, it's okay. And then she brings me home and I'm like a Bible study leader and everything. And she's like, oh, nah, it was cool, but that's not cool. He's not cool because he's darker. He's black. But now, mom loves me. Her mom loves me. Her dad always tries to teach me Korean. He always tries to talk to me. He always, he treats me really well. I think like the son he never had, because he has 3 daughters. And I'm technically now the first son. And I'm always invited over for dinner. Like we go over all the time to eat. It doesn't feel like I'm with my wife's family. It doesn't feel like I'm with these people who treated me badly. It feels like I'm with my family now. And I think one thing that kind of helped out with that is when we got married, traditional Korean marriages, like after you exchange vows and everything, the couple goes over to the parents and the husband bows. And I bowed to her parents. And when I stood up, her mom hugged me. And her mom didn't just like hug me for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. It was like a solid like 10 to 15 seconds. Like, and she had this like firm grasp, like this bear hug on me. And she cried. And I think at that moment, a lot was kind of lifted off of her. I honestly believe that she is a really good woman. She's a really good woman. And I felt that she had a lot of pressure on her from traditional Korean society, this outlook that husband has to be Korean. He has to be this way. He has to be this way. I think a lot of people in Korea kind of feel pressure. Everybody feels this pressure, right? But she also felt this pressure. And I think at that moment when we got married, I think somehow it was lifted. It was finally lifted off of her. And I think it came out in the form of tears. And so, and we embraced, and of course, I hugged her dad too. He's kind of but that's just how he is. But and then later on, I kid you not, later on, probably like a few days later, like she apologized to me. She said, "I'm sorry for everything." From that moment, I fell in love with that lady, and I just call her mom. When I talk to my wife, I don't say your mom. I just say mom. And so everything turned out perfectly, and I'm happy with my family. One piece of advice that I would give my fellow people of color is learn how to, first of all, come into this country thinking positively. And I feel like right now with the climate that we have, whether it's on the news or whatever, it's just kind of really negative, right? It's very racially focused. Is really it gets you down. And I highly advise you, if you come to live in Korea, don't come looking for that. And what I mean by that is, don't come and every little thing that happens, you see it as being racial. I've learned that Koreans themselves, even though we can say that many people here are racist, you cannot see it as the same racism that you would encounter in the United States, right? Being American, the racism that I encounter there is a different type of racism. It is a racism that has been in my country for years and years, and it is powered by hate and ignorance. In Korea, it is sheer ignorance, meaning that it's just because they just don't know. They just don't have any experience. They just don't have any exposure to something that would counteract whatever has taught them wrong before. So when you come here, understand that. Understand that people may not see you as who you are at first, but eventually they will. They will see you as that person that you actually are.
I hope that you guys enjoyed that episode of Stories from the Soul. Be on the lookout for more episodes, and hopefully you guys are gaining insight from this series. Make sure you follow me on social media at skycedi, and also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell. Until next time, we'll see you in the next video, and remember to always seize the day.